Brother George Washington is not only recognized as the most exalted father of the American nation, as the first president of the United States, he was also a man highly regarded by leaders across the globe. Washington was born into and strongly influenced by the Age of Enlightenment, in a time when science and industry was expanding and the European landscape more made evident the ravages of the secular and religious powers of the Middle Ages. Free-thinking people were embracing a reimagining of their faiths and way that they saw humanity. They saw each and every one of us as playing an essential role in learning ways to understand and transform our own behaviors from within. In this spirit was the coalescing of various historic trends in Freemasonry into a unified fraternity in 1717 in England. Built upon the tenets of brotherly love, relief, and truth, Freemasonry demanded of its members to study that which circumscribed our earthly desires in order to accomplish these noble intents. Being born into a family of landed gentry in Virginia, it stands to reason that his family was aware of early colonial Freemasonry. But prior to his initiation into the fraternity in 1752, and as a young man, though from privilege, he did not receive the benefit of more than 8 years of formal education. Washington himself considered this a disadvantage, making him self-conscious in the presence of those whom he considered as more learned or of an elevated status in the society of the time. But, being 6'2", at a time when the average man was a clear 6 to 10 inches shorter, he combined his looming physical stature and bearing with a strong ethic to work hard and learn all the practical skills needed to tend to his family estate. When of age, he learned the ways of military discipline, distinguished himself in that arena while also becoming a Freemason himself at the age of 20. His military career and the moral and ethical lessons and leadership training in Freemasonry would more than compensate for his lack of knowledge in teaching him how to present himself with the dignity and civility he saw so essential personal, social, and later political harmony. We know that these latter points, dignity and civility, were key attributes he sought to master in his training and resulting character from an early age. This is borne out by one of the few examples we have of writings penned by Washington in a little booklet he wrote as a young man known as the Rules of Civility. President Washington's Rules of Civility were what the young Washington copied from a book entitled Youth's Behavior or Decency in Conversation Among Men by Francis Hawkins, published in 1668. The original material for Hawkins' book came from a 1595 French Jesuit text entitled Bienessence de la conversation entre les hommes. Apropos for clergy and laymen, no doubt, as those who were literate at this time were of an upper class within society. This work was intended for young men of privilege. Thus, in civil society, it would have been presented to them by their parents, mentors, or teachers, with the sole intent of helping their young men become pleasing, to advance, be respected, and influential. The chapter that grabbed young George's attention was the rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation. The manuscript of rules that he copied down, he simply entitled Rules of Civility, with his original being preserved at the Library of Congress. It is clear when looking at the 110 points written down by Washington that, as the title implies in the chapter in Hawkins' book, we are looking at both civility and decency. In particular, decorum and propriety. Presenting oneself to others in such a refined or dignified and respectful manner goes a long way in allowing others to more willingly engage in communication with he or she who presents themselves thus. That is, one could say that decorum and propriety enhance or reinforce civility. One should note, however, that unlike civility, which is more to do specifically with communication and action, decorum and propriety are more time and culture bound. That is, they change more readily as societies and cultures evolve, for that matter, devolve. Thus, whereas civility, as we have defined it in the beginning of this volume, is universal, decorum and propriety are more conditioned. Thus, as we elucidate the 110 points, it will be noted when a point is more of Washington's era. At the same time, there may be more modern manifestations that make seemingly arcane conversations relevant here and now. Of course, one can assume that such rules, whether they are universal or conditioned, are mere conventions. That, however, does not negate their relevance in personal and social discourse, no matter how societies define them. That we are by nature social creatures, we need, even thrive and succeed, when we can agree and practice rules of conduct and moral guidance. Based on this understanding, we are pleased to present the Rules of Civility as copied down by Washington, punctuation, grammar, spellings, and capitalizations included, and apply and venture to demonstrate through commentary how each one remains as applicable and useful for today as Washington found for his own life, in service to his country and the greater good for which civility is a key component. As we go through the rules, they will at times appear to be redundant. That is, that the same point is being made in different rules. However, you will observe that most rules often contain 2 to 3 points for consideration. When presented in this way, the point that seems redundant takes on a whole new perspective, and with it, the commentary we offer will change based on the nuances of those new combinations of points that Hawkins wishes you to observe. Washington's rules and their commentaries are not only intended to make a lasting impression, but also bring about a reformation of character, resulting in you being an example of civility to all. And now listen, absorb, and enjoy Washington's rules.
Rule 1. Every action done in company ought to be with some sign of respect to those that are present. Commentary. To accomplish such action requires that you know yourself and know the company you are in. If you practice some form of mindfulness discipline, then being in a higher level of integrity within yourself, not only will that present an air that is pleasing, but you will naturally be more attentive to the responses of those around you. At the same time, if the social or political dimensions of the encounter require a higher level of decorum and/or sensitivity to social or cultural nuances of those present, then it is good to have knowledge of these aspects and/or be informed accordingly. Rule 2. When in company, put not your hands to any part of the body not usually discovered. Commentary. The appearance, placement, and movement of our hands in an interaction with another speaks volumes in terms of how we perceive them and how we feel in the transaction. Are we displaying shyness, too much familiarity, awkwardness, aggression, and so forth? Rule 3. Show nothing to your friend that might affright him. Commentary. Fright or shock of this nature has its place in the spectrum of communication. Shock value can have its place in marketing or stopping a transaction or moving it in a new direction. But it has no place in civility, especially with those who you are either friends or want to cultivate as such. Whereas civility is a process of smoothing a continuum of communication, shock or fright is disruptive and will, in fact, create greater uncertainty in the transactions that may follow. Rule 4. In the presence of others, sing not to yourself with a humming noise, nor drum with your fingers or feet. Commentary. Distracting oneself through these behaviors demonstrates a lack of a level of personal awareness as to what one is doing, but also that one is not fully paying attention to the others. A mindfulness practice where you learn to still the body and mind can be quite useful to stem, reduce, even curtail such outward distracting behaviors. Rule 5. If you cough, sneeze, sigh, or yawn, do it not loud but privately, and speak not in your yawning, but put your handkerchief or hand before your face and turn aside. Commentary. Such behaviors or actions bespeak a familiarity or casualness that adds little, but often lessens or diminishes the impact of what we are trying to communicate. On the flip side, if such urges do arise, the act of concealing, turning, etc. may in fact enhance the moment by its humanity and convey a respect for the situation. Rule 6. Sleep not when others speak, sit not when others stand, speak not when you should hold your peace, walk not on when others stop. Commentary. Essentially, what we are talking about here is A, how well you know the situation you find yourself in, and B, are you paying attention? Of the two, paying attention is primary. With a relaxed and focused mind, so many indiscretions and offenses can be naturally avoided. Furthermore, if you can be apprised of the situation and protocol accordingly, all the better. Rule 7. Put not off your clothes in the presence of others, nor go out your chamber half-dressed. Commentary. How one is dressed is about decorum and propriety. But again, as expressed earlier, being well dressed and groomed well dignifies the situation and encourages a higher level of attention and interaction. Of course, vanity, modesty, and so on, more personal reasons may be at play in one's mind. There may also be cultural factors as to what is appropriate in public and what is not. In this latter point, what you consider to be appropriate in public or to the situation may not be what another person may consider so. So pay attention. What impact is how you are presenting yourself having? Rule 8. At play and at fire, it's good manners to give place to the last comer, and in fact, not to speak louder than ordinary. Commentary. Courtesy or showing deference because of age, rank, honors, disability, and so on does not contradict the notion that we are ultimately all of equal standing. Depending on time and circumstance, those who are given preference can change. Such respect in these circumstances sets a civil, if not naturally gentle tone to proceedings. In communication, to speak louder than those with whom one is with is to make your own contribution more important than others who are present. Rule 9. Spit not in the fire, nor stoop low before it, neither put your hand into the flames to warm them, nor set your feet upon the fire, especially if there be meat before it. Commentary. In Washington's time, the fireplace was not only for warmth, but also for cooking, the drying of clothes in inclement weather, and the place where families would gather for various social and communal activities and interactions. Thus, if one wanted to spend time in conversation, in a home or more public setting where the fire and hearth was a gathering point, the familiarity with which family members may use a fire might create a familiarity which may degrade the civility of the gathering and the purpose for which it was gathered. Rule 10. When you sit down, keep your feet firm and even, without putting one on the other or crossing them. Commentary. With respect to crossing one leg over the other when sitting, body language experts see this as a more casual pose, but also one that blocks the energy between you and another person, like putting up a fence and standing behind it. That is, it creates distance, which, in the interest of equitable conversing, is inhibiting. Both feet on the ground squarely implies that you are present at and respectful of the situation.
Rule 11. Shift not yourself in the sight of others, nor gnaw your nails. Commentary. Staying composed within yourself and not tending towards behaviors that imply a lack of confidence or show nervousness will help others to feel more confident in you and will indicate a sense of self-confidence that will likely put all parties present at ease. Rule 12. Shake not the head or legs, roll not the eyes, lift not one eyebrow higher than the other, wry not the mouth, and bedew no man's face with your spittle by approaching too near when you speak. Commentary. With the exception of the spitting in someone's face, application of the other rules noted here is meant to avoid the indication, either accidental or intentional, of negative or dismissive feelings. Such signaling, whether intentional or not, can be detrimental to constructive discourse and create impediments to productive conversations, especially when the topic is potentially contentious. As for the spittle, courtesy would dictate that you would keep a reasonable distance from others while talking, especially if the topic is contentious. This is to avoid the accidental showering of a cohort during discussion. Rule 13. Kill no vermin as fleas, lice, ticks, etc. in the sight of others. If you see any filth or thick spittle, put your foot dexterously upon it. If it be upon the clothes of your companions, put it off privately, and if it be upon your own clothes, return thanks to him who puts it off. Commentary. It is usually our great aim to present ourselves in the highest light through outward cleanliness. Self-awareness of our appearance, or that of others, can sometimes wane, and sometimes emerge at the most inopportune times. Should we realize that our own appearance is impeded by extraneous conditions such as a smudge on our clothing, we should seek to remedy the situation away from others. Should we find that the good appearance of a friend or acquaintance is similarly impeded, you may quietly attend to it yourself, or you may gently notify them of the condition so they themselves can resolve the matter quietly. And when another, out of kindness, notifies us that we have an issue of which we may be unaware, we should graciously offer our thanks and attend to the matter privately. Rule 14. Turn not your back to others, especially in speaking. Jog not the table or desk on which another reads or writes. Lean not upon anyone. Commentary. Be mindful of others and of your presence in their space. In the course of daily conversation or activity, we are often in situations that are a part of the activities of others. Be aware and respectful of the personal space of others, their surroundings, and the tasks in which they are engaged, that you might avoid being disruptive. Rule 15. Keep your nails clean and short, also your hands and teeth clean, yet without showing any great concern for them. Commentary. Hygiene should be considered natural and ongoing, thus nothing that indicates that a fuss was made to present oneself in a clean and respectful way. Rule 16. Do not puff up the cheeks, loll not out the tongue, rub the hands or beard, thrust out the lips or bite them, or keep the lips too open or too closed. Commentary. Each of these behaviors is most often subconscious, and controlling them may take some extra work. So much of communication is visual, and such gestures don't necessarily reflect our inner thoughts. As in Rule 12, where eye-rolling and the like can interfere with civil and open discourse, so can these gestures cause the party to feel ignored and dismissed. As they are subconscious in nature, they may also falsely indicate a lack of interest in the topic or person's thoughts. Rule 17. Be no flatterer, neither play with any that delights not to be played withal. Commentary. Genuine flattery is usually welcomed by most who receive it. Disingenuous or unnecessary flattery, especially to garner favor, should be avoided at all costs. Inappropriate flattery does more harm than good and should also be avoided at all times. Rule 18. Read no letters, books, or papers in company, but when there is a necessity for doing it, you must ask leave. Come near the books or writings of another so as to read them unless desired, or give your opinion of them unasked. Also, look not nigh when another is writing a letter. Commentary. Though we are no longer generally a society of letters and writing, this rule has more application today than it may first appear. We now have the ability to instantaneously communicate through our cell phones and laptops, receiving messages in all sorts of circumstances. Though convenience may dictate immediate engagement, if you receive a call, excuse yourself from the conversation to attend to it. It avoids others listening in, and your conversation does not wind up disrupting the rest of the conversation. Text should also be responded to away from others. Doing otherwise immediately dismisses all who are in your vicinity. It also subjects your communications to prying eyes. And if someone else is writing a text, do not allow your eyes to drift towards their screen. Rule 19. Let your countenance be pleasant, but in serious matters, somewhat grave. Commentary. In friendly social circumstances, be intentionally pleasant and lighthearted, as this contributes to the environment and makes the interpersonal encounters of the moment more enjoyable. But should circumstances temporarily change to a more dour topic, be respectful and attentive to the conditions, and don't continue with the previously lighthearted demeanor, but instead exhibit compassion and empathy where possible. Rule 20. The gestures of the body must be suited to the discourse you are upon. Commentary. This is a modest reiteration of Rules 12 and 16. Body language can have as much of an impact on the outcome of a conversation as the words used during that conversation.
Rule 21. Reproach none for the infirmities of nature, nor delight to put them that have in mind thereof. Commentary. Sadly, mockery of this sort has entered into the social and political spheres, perpetuating stereotypes and causing general harm. To stand by and join in vicariously or remaining silent when such is being done not only makes oneself culpable, but diminishes one's character and sense of self-esteem. Rule 22. Show not yourself glad at the misfortune of another, though he were your enemy. Commentary. In whatever conflict we face, whether it is a personal conflict or an all-out conflagration consuming continents, to rejoice in the pain and suffering of others shows a shallow understanding of humanity and life in general. Thus, civility holds no quarter for those who seek revenge or take pleasure in the demise of others. Such an attitude can only diminish us as individuals and in the end leave us prey to the same. As the Welsh saying goes, if you plan revenge, dig 2 graves. Rule 23. When you see a crime punished, you may be inwardly pleased, but always show pity to the suffering offender. Commentary. Following on from Rule 22, by inwardly pleased, it would seem in the spirit of what is said that this does not mean to be happy. When justice is served, when a punishment fits the crime, we acknowledge that that which was done will hopefully serve 2 criteria. First, that such was done for a greater good, and second, that the punishment is instructive, informative, and met out with a recognition of our shared human birthright. And if it be that the punishment is punitive in nature, even to the point of death, that such acts are performed with a forgiving heart and a sense of remorse for the need to act thus. Rule 24. Do not laugh too loud or too much at any public spectacle. Commentary. The essential point of this rule is to not make a spectacle of yourself. In the midst of mirth, unless there is a point of intention or intention served by making oneself noticed, it is more civil and situation appropriate to allow oneself to be just a part of the merriment rather than a prominent feature of it. Rule 25. Superfluous compliments and all affectation of ceremony are to be avoided, yet where due, they are not to be neglected. Commentary. Pomp for pomp's sake, as well as compliments that are either unwarranted or intended to inflate another's ego for one's own designs, do nothing to elevate the situation. Pretentiousness creates an environment of inauthenticity. Like poison up string, it will undermine what follows. Conversely, where ceremony is warranted or elevates the circumstance, and where true compliments bring about recognition of something or someone to be celebrated, warmth and cordiality are usually the results. Rule 26. In pulling off your hat to persons of distinction, as noblemen, justices, churchmen, and so forth, make a reverence, bowing more or less according to the custom of the better bred and quality of the person. Amongst your equals, expect not always that they should begin with you first, but to pull off the hat when there is no need is affectation. In the manner of saluting and resaluting, in words, keep to the most usual custom. Commentary. In a modern world where propriety, decorum, and deference fly in the face of political correct egalitarianism and casual living, gestures of respect to those deemed worthy of deference seem pointless at best, offensive and degrading at worst. But when we see noble actions or experience excellent qualities in another, we do feel compelled to make some gesture of acknowledgement. Thus, such gestures do have a natural human component with respect to affection and so forth that then become embellished with the time and the perspectives of the culture. Rule 27. 'Tis ill manners to bid one more eminent than yourself be covered, as well as to do it to whom it's due. Likewise, he that makes too much haste to put on his hat does not well, yet he ought to put it on at the first, or at most the second time of being asked. Now what is herein spoken of qualification in behavior and saluting ought also be observed in taking of place and sitting down, for ceremonies without bounds is troublesome. Commentary. In a world where cultures meet and periodically collide, it would be nice if there was just one set of rules regarding whom to stand for, whom to sit, when, where, and how. But to the simple fact is that each culture has its pecking orders and priorities when it comes to propriety, decorum, and so forth. The best advice is to note that such actions and gestures do have a universal quality that one can cultivate through a mindfulness perspective rooted in love and respect. Rule 28. If anyone come to speak to you while you are sitting, stand up though he be your inferior, and when you present seats, let it be to everyone according to his degree. Commentary. To meet someone on the level is to make whatever discourse that transpires on a footing that demonstrates respect for the very act of conversing and whatever opinion is of the person you are conversing with. At the same time, if they approach you while being in a lower position than them, by standing, you negate intimidation as a prominent feature, regardless of whether this was their intention or not. Regarding the second point, when offering someone a seat, here the deference of the day is considered most appropriate. Here, you are both recognizing their rank or position while simultaneously bringing things down to the same level as such. There is thus recognition of that distinction that is respectful and at the same time equalizing. Rule 29. When you meet one of the greater quality than yourself, stop and retire, especially if it be at a door or any straight place, to give way for him to pass. Commentary. From the 17th century perspective, we are speaking of a world of secular and religious royalty or notables, who those of breeding and those considered lesser and expected to show deference were taught to acknowledge in the way described, and what those noted in this way may more than likely have expected. Thus, those who truly deserved such deference were rare, but not to incur the ire of those deemed noble, one learned to act in a way that would not offend. That said, there are those whom, when we see or experience them, such deference seems quite natural. They are rare, and if truly worthy, do not expect such. Rule 30. In walking, the highest place in most countries seems to be on the right hand. Therefore, place yourself on the left of him whom you desire to honor. But if three walk together, the midst place is the most honorable. The wall is usually given to the most worthy if two walk together. Commentary. The lesson Washington was learning here is more than a matter of decorum. The honoring or respect shown here is coupled with a strategy to defend. In general, our hand that we defend ourselves with is the right. Thus, if your right hand or side is to the one being respect's left, i.e., that you are on their left side, then your right arm is closest to them, which makes it easier to be as a shield or defender. If the one honored is in the middle, then it is likely they are holding court in an honored way, but they are also more defendable.
Rule 31. If anyone far surpasses others, either in age, estate, or merit, yet would place to a meaner than himself in his own lodging or elsewhere, the one ought not to accept it. So he on the other part should not use much earnestness, nor offer it above once or twice. Commentary. A truly noble person may offer others the better food, place to rest, or place or position that they themselves might otherwise claim or occupy. Whether this gesture is genuine or a mere formality, one should graciously refuse this generosity in a manner that is respectful and genuinely appreciative, but ensures that the offer will not be made more than twice. Rule 32. To one that is your equal, or not much inferior, you are to give the chief place in your lodging, and he to whom 'tis offered ought at first to refuse it, but at the second to accept, though not without acknowledging his own unworthiness. Commentary. Referring to the virtue of generosity as mentioned in Rule 31, practicing such in an appropriate way is well worth the effort. It shows respect, humility, and an effort to treat all as you would like to be treated. The unworthiness which should be conveyed should not be an act of feigned humility, but a respectful demonstration of your willingness to acknowledge generosity as well as practice it. Rule 33. They that are in dignity or in office have in all places the presidency, but whilst they are young, they ought to respect those that are equals in birth or other qualities, though they have no public charge. Commentary. Rank and station have existed for all of humanity. In this day and age, such conditions are usually a function of the title or office they hold, such as president or CEO. But before they held these titles, they were just people from various backgrounds and social status. If taught at an early age to be universally respectful to peers and elders, then as they matured to adulthood, they often brought an additional value to their station that allowed them to be even more effective in their roles as leaders. Those who do not learn this lesson at an early age may become entitled, and instead of contributing to the benefit of those they lead, may instead become tyrannical and uncaring, for they do not acknowledge the value of others, both above and below their station. Rule 34. It is good manners to prefer them to whom we speak before ourselves, especially if they be above us, with whom in no sort we ought to begin. Commentary. Nowadays, it can be just courteous and good form to allow others to speak on matters at hand before ourselves, regardless of rank or status. Additionally, in this era, during a conversation, it is often the case that people are given equal weighting in the ability to express their thoughts or opinions. However, in the case of specialized knowledge or experience, there is still a socially accepted paradigm that those seen as experts in a given field are offered a position of prominence, i.e., a keynote speaker, in settings such as conferences or conventions. Rule 35. Let your disclosure with men of business be short and comprehensive. Commentary. Get to the point. Time is money. For busy business people, the longer it takes for you to get to your point, the more likely it is that you will be introducing problems or detracting from accomplishing what it is you had set out to do for yourself or the other party. If they have questions, they will ask. Don't waste their time. Rule 36. Artificers and persons of low degree ought not to use many ceremonies to lords or others of high degree, but respect and highly honor them. And those of high degree ought to treat them with affability and courtesy, without arrogance. Commentary. This rule can be seen as a cross of Rule 17 and Rule 33. Don't unduly or overtly flatter those of a higher station, but simply give them due regard. And those in an elevated station should practice humility and responsibility to others in the discharge of their duties. Rule 37. In speaking to men of quality, do not lean nor in the face nor approach too near them. At least keep a full pace from them. Commentary. Famous people and public figures are still just people. All people deserve a level of respect both for themselves and their personal space. Their public visibility and recognizability do not force them to surrender their rights to privacy, respect, and consideration. Rule 38. In visiting the sick, do not presently play the physician if you be not knowing therein. Commentary. Generally, unsolicited advice is rarely welcome. If you are not a professional healer or physician, and you have not been asked to act in such a capacity, better to simply visit and comfort your friend or family member, and leave the rest to the professionals. Rule 39. In writing or speaking, give to every person his due title according to his degree, and the custom of the place. Commentary. Acknowledgement of recognized accomplishments of others in this way, even if the content of your comments is in criticism of them, shows respect for the place or station in which society has recognized them. Thus, whether your words are in praise or dissent, there is a great probability that they will be received in the best possible light. Rule 40. Strive not with your superiors in argument, but always submit your judgments to others with modesty. Commentary. This rule is not saying that you should not disagree with your superiors. Rather, it suggests that you not be too passionate in your argument. Such an approach will attract those who agree with you, allow those who disagree to listen to your firm but respectful points, and keep the doors of civil discourse open for future discussion and collaboration with those above you, who often make the decisions.
Rule 41. Undertake not to teach your equal in the art himself professes. It savors of arrogance. Commentary. There's a wonderful pithy English saying, don't try to teach your mother how to suck eggs. The point in this saying is that you should not try to school someone in something they already know or are known to be skilled at. Rule 42. Let thy ceremonies and courtesy be proper to the dignity of his place with whom thou converses, for it is absurd to act the same with a clown and a prince. Commentary. Know with who you are engaged, and show them the courtesy which best demonstrates an air of respect and propriety between the two of you. Rule 43. Do not express joy before one sick or in pain, for that contrary passion will aggravate his misery. Commentary. To show empathy for the sick does not imply that one needs to be morose or glum. One can be cheerful and make efforts to be uplifting to their mood or happiness. Even laughter can be a most welcome balm. But to be preoccupied or identified with one's own happiness of circumstance is not meeting the person in their hour of need in a manner that does show empathy. Tend to their need first. Rule 44. When a man does all he can, though it succeeds not well, blame not him that did it. Commentary. This rule acknowledges the altruistic spirit of humans and that everyone is doing their best based on what they know, especially when an act has been done with the best possible intention. Though the effort fails, a lesson is learned. If this lesson is met with blame and derision, more than likely whatever jewel there is in the lesson of failure will be lost. Rule 45. Being to advise or reprehend anyone, consider whether it ought to be in public or in private, presently or at some other time, in what terms to do it, and in reproving, show no sign of choler, but do it with all sweetness and mildness. Commentary. Whether one is advising another or reprehending them, timing, terrain, or location, and tone are essential dimensions of what is truly civil and stands a chance of being most effective. Furthermore, in almost inverse proportion, a message that is one of admonishment or reproach will be best received if done without a tone of accusation, but rather respectful affection. Rule 46. Take all admonitions thankfully, in what time or place soever given, but afterwards, not being culpable, take a time and place convenient to let him know it that gave them. Commentary. Rule 45 provides some guidance on how to most skillfully and with civility offer advice or admonition. This does not mean, however, that those who admonish you may have the same thoughtfulness or consideration. Thus, you may be embarrassed in front of others, which can be hurtful, degrading, and so on. However, you should understand that vehemently defending oneself or challenging he or she who admonished you in the same venue, though seeming justified, will not necessarily be looked upon with favor by anyone, even those who wish you to defend yourself. Thus, it is with patience and concerted effort that if one needs to be correct on accusation or judgment falsely made, you should apply the time, terrain, and tone recommendations of Rule 45. Rule 47. Mock not nor jest at anything of importance. Break no jests that are sharp biting, and if you deliver any, nothing witty and pleasant, abstain from laughing thereat yourself. Commentary. Whether the matter being attended to is of utmost or relative importance with the person or persons with whom you are engaged, you should be mindful not to trivialize or turn whatever it may be into some kind of joke. Of course, there may be a humorous or light side to what is being addressed, but this is holding the topic or issue as dear and finding something in it that may help ease tensions or even allow for more candid discussion to emerge. Then again, if in the mind of those others the matter is a sacred cow, more than likely they will not be able to endure even the lighter side to the matter. With wit that is sharp-tongued, the delivery of such is usually of a serious nature, possibly even an affront. Lastly, if it is you who are offering the jest or the mirth, to laugh at it yourself is to put your wit into the category of self-indulgent entertainment. Rule 48. Wherein you reprove another, be unblameable yourself. For example is more prevalent than precepts. Commentary. The modern saying in more colloquial terms is, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. However, if you can be blamed for the same as you are making accusations of, have you experienced and made a reformation of character? In such a case, you may be able to show more empathy for what the other is doing, but also be able to demonstrate that one can reform one's thoughts and actions, which in turn may actually be quite inspiring. Rule 49. Use no reproachful language against anyone, neither curse nor revile. Commentary. There is a difference between using language that reproaches a person's actions versus base language that is directed at their personage. Rule 50. Be not hasty to believe flying reports to the disparagement of any. Commentary. A skilled mind that holds as true or basic goodness is less susceptible to any reactive commentary. In actual fact, it is sometimes hyperbolic compliments which bypass our wariness that create worse or more problematic results.
Rule 51. Wear not your clothes foul, ripped, or dusty, but see they are brushed once every day at least, and take heed that you approach not to any uncleanness. Commentary. Dignity is demonstrated in the efforts we make to be as presentable as possible. To hold yourself to such a standard can elevate your own sense of dignity and self-worth. At the same time, if you find yourself in the company of those less fortunate than yourself, your example may be an inspiration. Rule 52. In your apparel be modest and endeavor to accommodate nature rather than to procure admiration. Keep to the fashion of your equals, such as are civil and orderly, with respect to times and places. Commentary. Don't make a spectacle of yourself unless there is an actual intent to do so, such as for a costume party or ball. Otherwise, your vanity will likely prove to be a distraction to your character and intent. Furthermore, be aware of the time, place, and convention when considering what to wear. Rule 53. Run not in the streets, neither go by too slowly nor with open mouth. Go not shaking your arms, kick not the earth with your feet, go not upon the toes, nor in dancing fashion. Commentary. This rule emphasizes the need to know your surroundings and to be mindful of your actions in the realm of public view. Take into consideration the perception of others. If it is your intent to be intentionally foolish and mirthful, it should be clear that this is your intent, and that your actions are not necessarily representative of the full breadth of your true character. Rule 54. Play not the peacock, looking everywhere about you to see if you be well decked, if your shoes fit well, if your stockings sit neatly, and clothes handsomely. Commentary. Being showy can be socially disruptive. It may also cause those around you to call your character into question, reducing their opinions of you and your capabilities. Being well dressed is a sign of self-respect and dignity. Being publicly ostentatious and grandiose calls many aspects of your personality and your ability to make sound decisions into question. Rule 55. Eat not in the street, nor in the house out of season. Commentary. This is a rule that seems to fall into the category of nice to have in this day and age. The face-past nature of the day may seem to make this rule unlikely, if not impossible, to follow. Though this may be true, there is something to be said, when possible, to have a designated time for the family to gather, eat, and discuss the dealings of the day. Socialization, bonding, communication, and security are all improved if such a regimen isn't. Rule 56. Associate yourself with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation, for 'tis better to be alone than in bad company. Commentary. Fair or not, you will be judged by the company you keep. Your reputation has value and is created by many factors. Others will judge you and make assumptions about you by the associations you choose to retain. On the more positive side, associate yourself whenever possible with the kind of people who represent the person you want to become. Though this can be translated to mean hang out with rich people if you want to be rich, there is a better analog. What you see positive and inspiring in others, you yourself should practice. What better way to learn how to be the best version of yourself than to spend time with the people who exhibit and possess the character and qualities you seek. Rule 57. In walking up and down in a house only with one in company, if he be greater than yourself, at the first give him the right hand, and stop not till he does. And be not the first that turns. And when you do turn, let it be with your face towards him. If he be a man of great quality, walk not with him cheek by jowl, but somewhat behind him, but yet in such a manner that he may easily speak to you. Commentary. The right side of a two-person stroll is determined to be a position of honor in times past. This convention has been rendered obsolete for some time now, but the general instruction for such an encounter still has merit. Even today, when walking down the street side by side, convention would encourage a man to walk on the street side when escorting a woman. To facilitate ease of conversation, not walking too fast, too far behind, or too far ahead also makes good sense. Rule 58. Let your conversation be without malice or envy, for 'tis a sign of a tractable and commendable nature. And in all causes of passion admit reason to govern. Commentary. Staying above the fray and remaining measured in the expression of your thoughts and ideas, even if they are not in agreement with others, is a sure way to present yourself as a person of passion, with restraint and thoughtfulness. This is a condition that will actually encourage others to engage you in difficult conversations in an effort to resolve matters of consequence, both large and small. Being seen as the reasonable and thoughtful one in the room has many advantages. Rule 59. Never express anything unbecoming, nor act against the rules moral before your inferiors. Commentary. Unseemly and inappropriate conversation, especially in the presence of those who might otherwise hold you in high regard, will have the effect of diminishing your own reputation and reduce your ability to positively influence those who would otherwise seek you out for sound and meaningful advice. In the presence of those who would be considered your superior, it will only limit what potential you may have to garner their favor and regard. Neither of these outcomes is desirable. Rule 60. Be not immodest in urging your friends to discover a secret. Commentary. Encouraging your friends to learn information that is currently and intentionally being concealed calls your own motives and character into question. It also unfairly jeopardizes the reputation of those you employ in the endeavor.
Rule 61. Utter not base and frivolous things amongst grave and learned men, nor very difficult questions or subjects among the ignorant, or things hard to be believed. Stuff not your discourse with sentences amongst your betters or equals. Commentary. Regarding the first point in this rule, don't degrade the conversation or your relationship with people of quality by wasting their time and energy on base or frivolous matters. Amongst those who have less capacity than you, don't burden or try to impress them with matters that will only confuse or lead to harm in some way. And lastly, avoid excess verbosity in conversing with your equals or those you deem with esteem. Rule 62. Speak not doleful things in a time of mirth or at a table. Speak not of melancholy things as death and wounds, and if others mention them, change, if you can, the discourse. Tell not your dreams, but to your intimate friend. Commentary. Know the context and pay attention to the mood of the conversation and setting, irrespective of the topic. In particular, to bring up what most see as dire topics requires a time and timing and context where people can be prepared to receive such. With respect to dreams, as they are generally of a personal nature, unless you are in a circle of friends, to those who have interest in such, to share these with a limited number of close friends is the best context for such to be expressed. Rule 63. A man ought to not value himself as of achievements or rare qualities of wit, much less of his riches, virtue, or kindred. Commentary. Self-flattery or pride over one's own status is boorish. Rule 64. Break not a jest where none take pleasure in mirth. Laugh not aloud, nor at all without occasion. Deride no man's misfortune, though there seem to be some cause. Commentary. Again, pay attention and become sensitive to the social environment of which you are a part. When it comes to others, and their misfortunes. To act in a manner that shows happiness for another's sorrows reflects badly on your own character. Regarding laughter, in a digital age where people may be plugged into a conversation or event on their media of which we know nothing, we see situations where people have maybe laughter or angry outbursts and making strange comments in the middle of situations that we have no idea what they're really on about and why they're saying what they're saying. How much does this make us tune out their actions and voices? How much does it impact what we think about these people when we see these kinds of displays? Rule 65. Speak not injurious words, neither in jest nor earnest, scoff none, although they give occasion. Commentary. Just because someone sets himself or herself up for ridicule or derision does not mean that one should take advantage of this situation. In fact, to do so will only make you smaller in the eyes of not only the person themselves, but others watching you do so. Rule 66. Be not forward, but friendly and courteous. The first to salute, hear and answer, and be not pensive when it's time to converse. Commentary. To be too eager or reserved or seemingly distant from being able to be engaged requires an attentive, peaceful mind ready to engage or not. How present are you to those who present themselves to you? Rule 67. Detract not from others, neither be excessive in commanding. Commentary. How well do you stand out of the way to allow others to have their just due in company? Learn not to deflect towards yourself, interrupt, or try to make yourself more than the other to whom the conversation is directed. Even if you need to be commanding in the circumstance, try not to let your action seem too forward or pushy. Rule 68. Go not thither where you know not whether you shall be welcome or not. Give not advice without being asked, and when desired, do it briefly. Commentary. In a mass transit and personal transportation world, it is hard to conceive of a time when most people did not travel more than 5 miles from their own dwelling or town. If we were more measured in our actions, traveled only when necessary rather than as part of our entertainment, how would this change our perception as to what is of necessity in traveling? In the second portion of this rule, if going to a place where you are perhaps not known or welcome, it makes only sense not to come out too forward with what you think, but wait for the request of your words or advice to be asked for. Rule 69. If two contend together, take not the part of either unconstrained, and be not obstinate in your own opinion. In things indifferent, be of the major side. Commentary. If you're in a situation where two people are having a contentious interaction, if you feel the need to take sides, do so with caution and not to make your opinion stronger than the argument of the person you are siding with. And if there are more than two and the matter is trivial or it really doesn't matter as far as you're concerned, then just go with the majority, as this will make the matter move along more smoothly. Rule 70. Reprehend not the imperfections of others, for that belongs to parents, masters, and superior. Commentary. When you know that someone has been raised or mentored in mannerisms and speech that are not skillful, it is far better to approach them with kindness and endeavor to bring about a reformation.
Rule 71. Gaze not on the marks or blemishes of others and ask not how they came. Commentary. People with noticeable blemishes, scars, or afflictions are already acutely aware of their unique appearance. Some may be uncomfortable about their condition and may even be embarrassed. Staring may not be intentional, but your consideration of others should be. Asking someone about their condition may only set about feelings that may be hurtful to them and, if in the company of others, may even change the mood of the room from joyful to uncomfortable in a single instance. Rule 72. Speak not in an unknown tongue in company, but in your own language, and that as those of quality do, and not as the vulgar. Sublime matters treat seriously. Commentary. Speaking in a language not widely used amongst present company can simply be a matter of comfort for those speaking in it. For those around them, it can foster a feeling of mistrust and questioning. It can make others uncomfortable and suspicious. It is always best to speak in the language that is common to your current surroundings and company. Rule 73. Think before you speak. Pronounce not perfectly, nor bring your words too hastily, but orderly and distinctly. Commentary. All of this is good advice. If put into practice, it demonstrates that whatever you are saying comes from a level of consideration of the matter. Measured and deliberate discourse also allows others to be engaged in the discussion, furthering the value of the conversation. Rule 74. When another speaks, be attentive yourself and disturb not the audience. If any hesitate in his words, help him not, nor prompt him without desire. Interrupt him not, nor answer him till his speech be ended. Commentary. This is a rule of respect. When a person forgets a word or pauses to clarify what they have said, rarely do they want unsolicited assistance. Furthermore, though it may be tempting to answer or comment when you think you know what they mean to say, as in Rule 73, do not be hasty in your interjection, as it may be disruptive to the flow of the conversation, and more seriously, may not even be correct. Rule 75. In the midst of discourse, ask not what one treateth. But if you perceive any stop because of your coming, you may well entreat him gently to proceed. If a person of quality comes in while you are conversing, it's handsome to repeat what was said before. Commentary. If you happen to come into the middle of a conversation between others, do not ask them to repeat what they have previously said. If there is a pause in the discussion due to your arrival, you can encourage them to continue on, which they may or may not choose to do. This would be upon them. For the same token, if a person of note enters a conversation midway, it is respectful to recap what has been said if you think the situation warrants such an act, in order to continue the flow of the conversation. Rule 76. While you are talking, point not your finger at him of whom you discourse, nor approach too near him to whom you talk, especially to his face. Commentary. Pointing fingers and standing too closely to someone while talking can be seen as an aggressive or intimidating act. Such acts are not conducive to civil and meaningful discourse. Rule 77. Treat with men at fit times about business, and whisper not in the company of others. Commentary. There is a time for work and a time for relaxation. Both can be accomplished at the same event, and though discussing business at a dinner or cocktail party is not out of bounds, it should be the case that all parties are interested in engaging in this discussion. Otherwise, more appropriate conditions and surroundings might be preferred. To know the difference is important. As for whispering, to do so in the company of others can cause others to feel excluded or uncomfortable, as you may be talking about them. Neither of these conditions is optimal for social experiences. Make no comparison, and if any of the company be commended for any brave act of virtue, commend not another for the same. Commentary. If someone is being praised or commended, to mention another will naturally cause people to draw a comparison, in which case the credit to both may be lost. A cascade of one-upsmanship may also ensue, further diminishing the accomplishments of all. Rule 79. Be not apt to relate news if you know not the truth thereof. In discoursing of things you have heard, name not your author always. A secret discover not. Commentary. Passing along what you are unsure of can generate gossip and jeopardizes your own credibility. It may also cause unwarranted harm to come to the reputation of another. Lastly, if you do know something for sure, and it comes from a reliable source, are you certain that they would want to be known as the source of the information? Better to remain silent than appear to be in the know. Rule 80. Be not tedious in discharge or in reading, lest you find the company pleased therewith. Commentary. Know and watch your audience. If they appear to be disinterested in your conversation, Do yourself and everyone else a favor and disengage and give the others the floor for the moment.
Rule 81. Be not curious to know the affairs of others, neither approach those that speak in private. Commentary. As curiosity arises emotionally, it is difficult for it not to be there when it is. However, it then becomes a practice not to indulge in it when it comes to the private lives of others. In such a situation, it is better to step back from and let whatever is transpiring to transpire, knowing that if those doing so want you to be in the know, you will learn of it soon enough. Rule 82. Undertake not what you cannot perform, but be careful to keep your promise. Commentary. It is a good practice to know yourself well enough to know, understand, and not exceed your own capabilities. To practice stretching oneself to grow in such is not discouraged, but especially in situations where a result is expected or the stakes are too high, better to decline or defer to another. However, once you have promised to do something, then you place yourself in a situation where, in fact, stretching yourself is what you are expected to do. Even if you fail, in the face of a promise, it is better to be seen in the effort or trying than in cowering or avoiding altogether. Embarrassment is far better than being seen as untrustworthy or not of your word. Rule 83. When you deliver a matter, do it without passion and with discretion, however mean the person be you do it to. Commentary. By matter, it would appear that Hawkins is speaking of an issue that you need to bring before another. The recommendation is to be factual and respectful, providing what needs to be known without adding to it your emotionality. Then, even if the situation is unpleasant, the facts, rather than your emotionality, are what the other will be led to focus on without deflection. Rule 84. When your superiors talk to anybody, hearken not, neither speak nor laugh. Commentary. It is clear in this rule that Hawkins is addressing younger men who need to develop a proper relationship to their superiors. However, even in the course of one person addressing another specifically, it is better not to make yourself part of what needs to be considered. Even if this is in a group setting, there will be a dyadic conversing where the commentary of others is unwarranted, unwelcome, or simply superfluous to the transaction. Rule 85. In company of these of higher quality than yourself, speak not till you are asked a question, then stand upright, put off your hat, and answer in few words. Commentary. In a world and time of aristocracy and those of a younger age learning to find their place, these comments are direct and obvious. But in everyday life, where there are people of note and those whom we venerate for whatever reason, these comments create a civil and orderly process in the flow of communication. In a world lapsing into a perpetual casual culture, such an approach may seem stiff and stultifying, but it is amazing to see how easily the flow of ideas and actions go when such rules are given heed. Rule 86. In disputes, be not so desirous to overcome as to not give liberty to each other to deliver his opinion, and submit to the judgment of the major part, especially if they are judges of the dispute. Commentary. Do not be overbearing in expressing your opinion, and give each person their due. Here, Hawkins, in speaking of young men, encourages them to bend to the majority or the judges of disputed issues. Thus, there is little said to train one to be young, civil, and yet rebellious. Rule 87. Let thy carriage be such as becomes a man, grave, settled, and attentive to that which is spoken. Contradict not at every turn what others say. Commentary. As if knowing that some of a younger age may take exception to following Rule 86 to the letter, in the latter half of this rule, Hawkins explains that if you're going to be contrary, don't make it a style just for the sake of it. If you are grave, settled, and attentive, then if you do have to contradict, it will be well measured and more than likely appropriately delivered. Rule 88. Be not tedious in discourse, make not many digressions, nor repeat often the same manner of discourse. Commentary. Don't be redundant nor take people down various side issues that may have little relevance to what you are trying to put across. And if the same issues or points need to be made, be measured how and when to repeat those things, lest your repetitions seem tedious and bothersome. Rule 89. Speak not evil of the absent, for it is unjust. Commentary. To speak evil of another is basically uncalled for, although commentary on actions, words, and behavior seen as suspect, dangerous, etc., may be well warranted. Sometimes these things need to be discussed, but when it comes to admonishing another and desiring a reformation of their character or person, it is far better that they are present in the final analysis and when the time is deemed appropriate. Otherwise, the conversation about them will sour into gossip of the most upsetting and poisonous sort. Rules 90 through 107 are about propriety in eating and dining etiquette. In times when the day began at sunrise and ended at nightfall, dining together was a central feature of instilling harmony in the family and meeting of others outside the functions of work or religious activity. It was clearly understood that the raising and harvesting of one's food was a core feature of a civilized community. Understanding this very basic fact of life and appreciating it for the nurturing it offers on many levels was more commonplace than it is today. With respect to etiquette in particular, one could see the upbringing, demeanor, and civil disposition in how one approached food and showed consideration for those around the dining table. If meal times and getting together to eat as families became commonplace again, how would that affect family life and relations, especially if no one could bring their cell phone or other personal device to the table? Rule 90. Being set at meat, scratch not, neither spit, cough, or blow your nose, except there's a necessity for it. Commentary. Common decency when dining with others. It's so important, so civil, so needed.
Rule 91. Make no show of taking great delight in your victuals. Feed not with greediness. Cut your bread with a knife. Lean not on the table, neither find fault with what you eat. Commentary. Formal and familial dining and the social graces of respectable and gracious dining are all but abandoned in this day and age. However, business lunches are still a part of the business environment, and social gatherings centered around food, where people are introduced to each other, often for the first time, are still common occurrences. Thus, manners and the practice of proper dining etiquette deserve our attention, as impressions are made and opportunities lost during the simple but important human act of eating. Rule 92. Take no salt or cut bread with your knife greasy. Commentary. This rule has less to do with hygiene than it does about using implements that have already been used by you and having them interact with items that are communally shared with the group. Though there may be little risk in this act, few will find the notion appealing. Rule 93. Entertaining anyone at the table, it is decent to present them with meat. Undertake not to help others undesired by the master. Commentary. The head of the house should be consulted in the matter of who is invited to attend meals in the household. If deemed unwelcome, no such invitation should be extended. However, once a guest is welcomed, they should be treated equally and afforded the same considerations. Rule 94. If you soak bread in the sauce, let it be no more than what you would put in your mouth at a time, and blow not in your broth at the table, but stay till it cools of itself. Commentary. If you soak bread in soup or broth, do so without over-soaking, so that it is not a dripping mess, as it travels to your mouth. The common practice of blowing on your soup is not seen as a particularly uncouth behavior today, but the rule as stated encourages you to wait for the soup to cool down on its own before eating it. The benefit here is that if you do not blow on it, either in the bowl or on your spoon, you do not risk splashing it all over the table or yourself. Rule 95. Put not your meat to your mouth with your knife in your hand, neither spit forth the stones of any fruit pie upon a dish, nor cast anything under the table. Commentary. The common convention in the U.S. today is to use your fork for eating and your knife for cutting. This is not necessarily a global convention. In some places, both are used for carrying food to your mouth. Throwing food under the table, especially in the home, sounds inappropriate in any condition. As far as the stones or seeds from the fruit from a pie, if you cannot put them on a plate, I'm hard-pressed to know what to do with them. Maybe we bake pies only with seedless fruits to avoid this issue. Rule 96. It's unbecoming to stoop much to one's meat. Keep your fingers clean, and when foul, wipe them on a corner of your table napkin. Commentary. Sitting upright and slowly moving the food to your mouth from the plate reduces the chance of food falling from the fork. Stooping to meet the food part way may mean that you are eating too fast or inappropriately overloading your fork or spoon. Keeping your fingers clean with a wipe on the napkin seems pretty straightforward policy. Rule 97. Put not another bit of food into your mouth until the former is swallowed. Let not your morsels be too big for your jowls. Commentary. As noted in Rule 96, slow the pace of your eating, take modest bites, and thoroughly chew and swallow your food. Rule 98. Drink not, nor talk with your mouth full, neither gaze about you while you are drinking. Commentary. Presumably, the components of this rule are meant to ensure that you look composed while eating and drinking. Do not risk spilling or spraying food or drink on your guests. Rule 99. Drink not too leisurely, yet too hastily. Before and after drinking, wipe your lips. Breathe not then or ever with too great a noise, for it is uncivil. Commentary. Pacing yourself while drinking generally allows for a stable and enjoyable experience for all. Wiping your mouth makes you more pleasant to look upon, and thus facilitate an affable and engaging social experience. After taking a drink, don't let out a massive sigh or ah, as it is not necessarily a welcome follow. Rule 100. Cleanse not your teeth with the tablecloth napkin, fork, or knife, but if others do, let it be done without a peep to them. Commentary. Mind your own manners and make no comment to the others about theirs, lest you make a spectacle of their poor behavior, which may cause them embarrassment or annoyance.
Rule 101. Rinse not your mouth in the presence of others. Commentary. Such a behavior is best done in private or in a bathroom. Rule 102. It is out of use to call upon the company often to eat, nor need you drink to others every time you drink. Commentary. Although to do these acts is a custom of courtesy, know your situation, the time, and the timing. To act reflexively or habitually in such matters will usually create awkward moments, which may be perceived as token or insincere. Rule 103. In the company of your betters, be not longer eating than they are. Lay not your arm, but only your hand upon the table. Commentary. To linger longer when eating puts you in the situation of setting the timing and place of the dining situation. This may be considered lazy or disrespectful to those who you should defer to. Also, to place one's arm on the table may be seen as a sign of laziness, a casual attitude, or impropriety. Rule 104. It belongs to the chiefest in company to unfold his napkin and fall to meat first, but he ought then to begin in time and to dispatch with dexterity, that the slowest may have time allowed him. Commentary. A sign of a truly quality leader, patron, or chiefest person is that they have a natural and or due consideration for everyone at the table, so that no person feels lesser or embarrassed unduly, regardless of their standing. Rule 105. Be not angry at the table, whatever happens, and if you have reason to be so, show it not. Put on a cheerful countenance, especially if there be strangers, for good humor makes one dish of meat a feast. Commentary. Nothing rules a meal faster than anger and other negative emotions people are feeling and or displaying while trying to eat. Try to clear the air. Let it go. Breathing deeply and calmly, like in meditation. And if you cannot contain yourself, it is better to excuse yourself than to infect the dining experience of others. Rule 106. Set not yourself at the upper of the table, but if it be your due, or that the master of the house will have it so, contend not, lest you should trouble the company. Commentary. It is not your place to choose the head of the table as yours unless it is so. However, when the master or company offer you that spot, you should accept their generosity. In Buddhist thinking, it is always beneficial to the one offering generosity for one to accept it from them. Rule 107. If others talk at the table, be attentive, but not talk with meat in your mouth. Commentary. Do not let your haste to respond make a display of the content of your mouth. By allowing chewing to set the pace, your words will be far better considered, presented, and more than likely received. The final three rules are general recommendations covering the more basic and spiritual dimensions of our lives, and are the prerequisites for being able to enact a life of civility for the betterment and benefit of all. Rule 108. When you speak of God or his attributes, let it be seriously and with reverence. Honor and obey your natural parents, although they be poor. Commentary. When it comes to the spiritual dimension of our nature and our attitude towards the transcendent, we should treat such matters with reverence. The last point about our birth parents speaks of the unconditional love for parents, especially mothers have for their offspring. Even if they are not wealthy or educated, and even if they were cruel or unskillful in other ways, consider that without their care day to day in keeping one fed, protected from the environment and dangerous influences, we would not have the life and opportunity we have here and now. Let your recreations be manful, not sinful. Commentary. Although this comment is made with respect to gender, the basic point is to participate and enjoy recreation that is energizing and rewarding, be it more athletic or sedentary in nature. Sinful recreation has more to do with what is base and somehow destructive personally, collectively, and morally. Rule 110. Labor to keep alive in your breast that little spark of celestial fire called conscience. Commentary. The Jesuits, and similarly Hawkins, see an inner celestial fire as part of our very nature. But without training, discipline, and mindfulness, it is easy to lapse into habitual behaviors that serve neither us nor the world in which we live. As such, this final rule is fitting end to Washington's rules.
Thank you for taking this civility journey with us, with the guidance of Brother George Washington. While the words we just explored were not his, They easily could have been. You see, George Washington lived a life of civility, putting the interest of others and our nation above his own, going so far as to eschew calls for him to remain in power beyond his elected term. I challenge each of us to examine our own actions, words, and behaviors to see where we have opportunity to grow and improve. In short, to better emulate Brother George Washington. You see, while his words may be considered quaint, the concepts are every bit as relevant today as they were in his day. Let each of us commit to employing our Masonic teachings in our daily lives, so that we may serve as that proverbial pebble and allow ourselves to be dropped into the placid waters of complacency to create lasting change and repair our world.